Hi, everyone, and welcome to Living a Legacy. And I'm excited to welcome to the program Eric Couch. Eric, what's going on, man?
Man, excited for today, Neil. Today, we have an actor who has been in Bond, License to Kill, Predator 2, Die Hard, Showgirls, Expendable 3. But honestly, I'm most excited because he is Slaw's brother, Jake Fratelli from Goonies. Welcome, Robert Davi. Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you guys for having me, Eric and Neil. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wow, Eric. And so when I think about it, Robert, I think about specifically enough just all the things you're known for and in your career. And it spans. And Eric, I know that we're talking off air about that, right, Eric?
Oh yeah. Well, I've been, I love a lot of shows you've been in, but I think I could probably quote the entire Goonies movie. And, my kids can probably quote most of it as well. So, it's pretty fun and exciting. And
now, did you know that I did an album that went to #6 Billboard Jazz?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I was actually going to bring that up. My wife was she mentioned, she's like, wait, he's the singer. I was like, yeah. Because so I was a vocal performance major in college, and you were actually an inspiration. Although my brothers gave me crap all the time, right? And they're always doing opera crap. But when you're singing Una Furtiva, right? What's funny is in my senior recital they gave it to me, and I'm dying when I first hear it because all I can think is the Goonies. But
I sang that. I didn't do any of the opera in the album. I did the American Songbook. It's called Davi Sings Sinatra. It went to #6 on Billboard Jazz. You can get it on Amazon, iTunes, and then if you go to YouTube, you can see I travel the world doing a show of the American standards.
Yeah.
And that the opera and Goonies you're referring to, Una Furtiva Lacrima, that was all an improvisation. That was not in the script.
Yeah, but it was great. It made the scene.
Yeah.
And obviously you sing and then you made this. And what's really cool to tie in that I didn't know before is that, as you sang Sinatra in it, your very first movie, Contract on Cherry Street, was with Frank Sinatra, right?
Yeah. We became friends from that. Sinatra, being an Italian American, you Sinatra in utero. So, he was such a huge influence. Not only in the music world, but also in society, because the guy that was one of the earliest superstars to come out against anti-Semitism and racial bigotry.
Right.
And also, he made a transition from being a liberal, as many had, bleeding heart liberal, to a conservative later on in life. And I'm sure his voice would have been needed today to kind of like set the record straight with a lot of what's happening.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely. We're afraid to say certain things at times, Robert, right? Because of the police. It just happened in an interview I just did now, that the publicist is livid based on a question we asked, which I'm like, wow, we can't even ask any questions about growing up in the cities of Chicago. We just give me straight ups. I'm getting text messages right now.
Neil, that has to be fought against vehemently. Every single person. I wrote about this canceling of free speech on Breitbart in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
And the Hollywood community is right now, they need to be held accountable. The artists for not promoting free speech, no matter what it might be, no matter what side of the fence you are on politically, as long as you're not an anarchist. But I guess it doesn't matter because anarchists can speak, but not patriotic Americans. And people like Jimmy Kimmel and people like Jimmy Fallon that have these mouthpiece shows and The View and everything else that berate a different kind of thinking, a different thought. And we are all for each other in this nation.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are issues, but we can't go on canceling everything. Look, they're saying that Shakespeare is racist now. I mean, the latest was Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, yeah.
There maybe have been some cartoons of his back in the 30s. but
don't even get into Shel Silverstein. You know, I remember reading Where the Sidewalk Ends as a kid.
Yeah,
You know, that would definitely be off the books.
But it's a confusing time for the
Yeah.
youth. And I think, look at the stock market's going down. Gasoline in California went from $2 a gallon with Trump to now over $4 a gallon.
Right.
Our rights are being threatened in a certain way, and we have to band together, left and the right, to tell the truth. We have to stop with the hypocrisy of protecting whatever side you happen to be on.
Right.
We saw what happened with
Correct.
Cuomo now. You know what happened with Andrew Cuomo. I was talking about him over a year ago. He wasn't held accountable for what he said, and he was holier than thou and a braggart and a bit of a cartoon character. And now he's, you know, getting, you know, his at least he's under some kind of scrutiny.
Well, and you know what we're seeing, you know, I'm starting to see, I've seen a couple influencers that I follow, and some of them, you know, it's hard to tell which side they're on, but they are starting to pick up the gauntlet of, look, that's why we have freedom of speech. And I will, you know, one of them a while back, you know, he was like, look, I may not agree with you, but I'll fight to the bitter end on your ability to say that. It doesn't matter if I agree with you or not.
Yeah.
That's what freedom of speech recommended.
Philosopher that said, you know, I will fight to the death. I disagree, you know, with everything you've said, but I will fight to the death to let you speak it.
To defend it, yeah.
To defend it. And we have forgotten that, and that's frightening.
Yeah.
That's frightening. And they want to label everything hate speech if it's a difference of opinion. Now,
Right.
there are people that absolutely propagate certain kind of negative speech, of course. And I always felt, I spoke about this in CPAC, guys,
Right.
in 2016. The ancient Romans had the calumny law. And the reason being is they found that good, upstanding citizens that wanted to run for government or be in the government were being slandered against. And so that made good, even though it was false accusations. So these good, upstanding people weren't running anymore. And they were getting the bottom of the barrel with people. And what happened was they started the calumny law, which said, if you accuse someone of something and they were found to be innocent, you were given the punishment for what you accused them of. Now, we need that right now in America.
Right. Yeah, because anybody can say anything about anyone.
Exactly.
And anybody can sue anyone for any reason. And it's like you bring a lawsuit, well, there's got to be merit. Well, not necessarily, right? You know, the government can sue anyone and they're using your money to fight you. And it's just, you know, you almost can't win that proposition. So it's like, you know, where are people protected? You know, obviously this is a phenomenal segue into why part of what we want to talk about today is your upcoming project. But I want to push that off just a touch longer, because there is so much story with you, right? As singer, as an activist, as a actor, you know.
I don't call myself an activist. I consider myself a concerned citizen.
But it just, you know, all that means is I actually speak up for what I believe.
No, I know that it has a connotation that to me is a concerned citizen. And then people are frightened to speak up because then they're labeled an activist or they're minimalized in a certain way.
Right.
The political correct police always go after when we open our mouth up one time, or even in ways of just debating somebody. We're fearful to debate now. This is really scary. There's no dialogue. Yeah.
Even on the left, Alec Baldwin mentioned something today. He's off Twitter now because he mentioned the comment about some actress, I don't know who it was, changing her accent or some kind of strange thing. And, you know, he got berated on it. Now, you know, Alec, I know, I respect him as an artist. I have had political conversations with him. We don't agree. But there is and even I know of a 14-year-old girl who was vehemently against Trump with her friends and on media. And recently, it was told to us that there's a turnaround. People feel, and the youth and even celebrities said, what the heck did we do? We got led down the wrong path.
Yeah.
If
Wow.
that's happening at a grassroots of youth under the underground, and we know that that's what happened. I mean, the disgust of CNN and MSNBC, I'm all for, let everybody debate everybody, and but let's not be hypocrites.
Right. Well, and people ask me, I'm like, there's two things, right? One is I'm convinced. Now, this is me, but I am absolutely convinced that media and big pharma are working together, because I turned off the news 20 plus years ago because I'm convinced that their sole deal is to get my blood pressure up and get me, just frustrated. And I'm like, and I think they want me, buying blood pressure meds, and that's their whole goal, right? So I'm like, I can't watch. There is no such thing as news reporting anymore. And I don't care almost who you're listening to. It seems like it's all a big editorial, and it's just an opinion piece, but they phrase it as fact, which drives me crazy.
Well, Eric, you got to look at it's even bigger than big pharma. Let me just tell you.
Well, it is. It's just the blood pressure part for me.
Politicians in Congress or the Senate, on the left or the right.
Yeah.
Think about the politicians in there that have been in power for 40 plus years. Schumer, right. Pelosi, Schiff, McConnell. I mean, think about these politicians that have had a stranglehold on the American people's policies. Now,
right.
You have to realize something. We've got the media that is in the tank. You've got Hollywood that's in the tank. You've got education that's in the tank.
Yeah.
Or Marxist culturalism. So they are feeding continually, and this is a big thing that I think the GOP misses and the conservative movement misses, really, is understanding culture and using culture and people that can communicate to the masses in a certain way. So you have these talk show hosts, and they're feeding the public one ideology, continued, and without any repercussions. It's
right.
Astounding. We have people in our government that are working for special interests, foreign interests, and they're not working for the American people.
Right. Now which takes us
and lifts the skirt out of from all of them, as he's been for years, and he gets attacked like an animal. But yet in other parts of the world now, like France, so supposedly Le Pen may win in France over Sarkozy. There's issues happening over in France. Today in Finland, or yesterday, a woman who had a yoga class, and someone from the yoga class, I don't know all the details, someone from the yoga class got the COVID. So she took her child and she went into the woods, their cabin, to just isolate for 14 days. Well, when she turned her phone on in the woods, the police came and they extracted her. Now, that happened in China, if you remember. Early on, we saw videos of the police going into homes and taking the Chinese, people.
Right.
I don't know if you saw those videos.
No?
I haven't seen the videos.
There were videos of that early on. I'm talking a year ago, January, February, where I knew that this was maybe even December, but that there was a bigger problem than what we anticipated because of what was happening in these videos on that you would catch on Twitter that were leaked. And so there's something, something nefarious is happening. We've let it happen.
Yeah, we did. Okay. Eric, I know you're ready to go to the next part. We're talking about the project, right? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Right. Which is exactly, I mean, it goes in line with all of this that we're talking about, right? Because Robert, you're focusing on what are you passionate about? And I've got to believe that you're passionate about your latest project, because it's such an impactful story for the history of our country. So you tell us about it, tell us your role, and give us a little insight. I'm not going to even tell them the name because I want you to go there.
It's Nick Loeb is the co-director, writer, producer, and the actor that plays, forget his last name, Nathaniel, who was the biggest abortion in America, tremendous, and it follows his story in a way. It's called Roe versus Wade, and we all know about the Supreme Court decision of Roe versus Wade.
Right.
The landmark decision that it had and the effect it had on the nation and on unborn children. But we don't know how the sausage was made, so to speak. We don't know what happened under the sheets of these Supreme Court justices. I happened to play Supreme Court Justice William Brennan. Now, Brennan was, Antonin Scalia called Brennan the most influential justice of the 20th century.
Yeah.
He was a guy that believed in a living constitution that opened up, the Constitution was malleable. And he came up with the argument of a woman's right to privacy based on a case from Texas, and then started to help sway the court, the rest of the court, with that decision, that we could use that as a basis for having, now he was a Roman Catholic. Now, we have great actors that are playing cameos of chief justices, but the story is this doctor, this abortionist, who goes through a transition. So by the end of the film, he has a catharsis, much like I think the audience will, because it doesn't spoon-feed, it's not a propagandized film. It's not shoving something down your throat. It's presenting facts, it's fair, and then you can make your own decision.
When I saw the first trailer before it came out, what blew me away about it, and I can't wait to watch the film, is the fact that, Robert, when I saw it specifically enough, you couldn't see which side that the film was about. That Nick, that is pro-life, sees specifically enough, gave both sides. So if you're on the left, you should see this film. If you're on the right, you should see this film, because either way, you'll see the true story of what happened. And that's important, to highlight history in the right way with the true whole story, not just one side, but both. And I think this is why you were part of this.
Absolutely. I say this, we have to find culture, because there's big issues, and the left is 20 years ahead of us in hitting these big issues. They have infiltrated culture 20 years ahead of an agenda. They know it. The writers, don't forget, I just did another film called Reagan. I played Brezhnev. Dennis Quaid plays Reagan. Penelope Ann Miller plays Nancy Reagan, and Quaid plays a Russian operative, and I'm playing Brezhnev. And I knew this ahead of time with Reagan, but in the 1940s, in Hollywood, the Communist Party had infiltrated America since the 1920s.
Wow.
With the unions and everything else. This is factual stuff. You can Google it. It's not made up. They had infiltrated Hollywood. So much so that I think in 1946 at an actress's house called Ida Lupina, she had a meeting of the Communist Party at her house. Now, she was not a communist, but she had a meeting there. And William Holden, the actor, told Ronald Reagan about it, and they crashed this meeting of all Hollywood elite.
Really?
Now, when Reagan went, he was browbeaten and told not, and this is why I'm saying, you're going, really? This is one of the big stories of America. And when Reagan was browbeaten and not able to speak, they wouldn't let him speak, an actor called John Garfield. I don't know if you know that actor. John Garfield was the first anti-hero, the first of a Brando, he was one of the first actors from the group theater, a brilliant actor. Force of Evil is a film he did. He died very young at 38 years old. But he got up and said he should speak. We should let him speak. He has a right to speak. Reagan. And Reagan got up and amidst boos and everything else that you would get, like Hollywood today, if I got up, and they would boo me and browbeat me and negate. Reagan spoke. And years later, an actor that was there, you ever see the Godfather movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. The person who played the police captain, remember the police captain that punches Michael Corleone at the hospital?
Yeah.
He shoots him in the throat in the cafe. That actor was Sterling Hayden. Now, Sterling Hayden was a patriot. He fought in the war for us in World War II, but he was also part of the Communist Party. He then denounced them, but later on he called Reagan a one-man wrecking crew of the Communist Party in Hollywood. Now, have you ever heard of the Venona Project?
Nope.
Okay, another cultural thing. Now, the left has made innumerable movies about the blacklisting, like Joe McCarthy and everything else, right? They've done so many different things about McCarthy and how bad the blacklist was. And even today, you'll hear GOP people say, well, that's worse than the McCarthy era, or the McCarthy era was this and that. Well, there were two factions of that. There was the House Un-American Activities, and there was the McCarthy hearings. In 1996, a Democrat senator from New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, said he wanted the Venona Project to be made public.
Oh.
What is the Venona Project? The Venona Project was a Soviet code that they thought we couldn't encrypt, we couldn't break. From the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and on. Well, guess what? We had decoded it. So the Venona Project, 99% of the people that Joe McCarthy fingered in our government as communists were. And we know in history today, and we know in history today that Brennan, the CIA guy, was a member of the Communist Party, was he not? We know that. Did you know that? Right? So if you have this infiltration in America, just think of the bureaucracy in education, in media, in everything else, because, and even the Weather Underground, Bill Ayers wanted world communism. He is writing he's after they stopped blowing up buildings, he and Bernadette Dorn, what did they do? And I wrote about this on Breitbart. Go to Breitbart, read some of my past articles, you'll get a wealth of information.
Okay.
But Dorn and Bill Ayers, they went from blowing up buildings like defund the police, blowing up and the Pentagon. They realized that if they captured education, it would be more powerful.
Right.
So they started writing the school books and advising the school books. And where are they? In Chicago. Like that reporter got upset, the PR person got upset about Chicago. Anyway, unless we are armed with this information, and I always said a film should be done, a true film, like Roe versus Wade on Joe McCarthy, because you can't say what's happening now in terms of shutting up people that want freedom. We're not talking about people wanting to overthrow the government of the United States. They just want the government, this Constitution, to be upheld.
Right. Just want some honesty and people to be accountable for what they say and do. Not rocket science.
No matter what side of the fence they're on.
Yeah.
And I say both sides do not represent the American people anymore. They represent special interests, foreign interests, and the whatnot. The global.
Yeah, because I don't care which side you're on. You know, most of them have been there. I mean, they've been hanging out with each other for 20, 30, 40 years. They're much closer friends than they are. Like, I've never met them. So,
well,
you guys are enemies, but you've been hanging out with each other for 40 years? Really? Yeah.
Well, it's that, but also, you see, the left knows how to emote. They're able to put a message into affecting the youth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like Biden right now with you know, God bless the guy's soul, opening up the borders again. Now, here we have COVID-19. Here we have American financial peril. We have health peril because of COVID. And it's a good idea that he says, let's open up. What he should have delayed it. I mean, open up the borders, and now they're coming across, these kids. What are they doing? Now, these kids, do you know, they've got wristbands on. Did you know that? The kids that are pouring over the border have wristbands on. They are controlled by the cartels in Mexico. Lara Logan did a special on this. And they track them exactly where they are and how they're going. So what is the left doing in America? What is Pelosi doing to America? Now, her family, D'Alessandro family, JFK was having them investigated back in the day. And no one talks about any of this stuff. These people go around. She doesn't care that gasoline went to over $4 a gallon. The elite doesn't care.
Right.
But the worker, I'm a soldier of cinema. I'm a blue collar actor. You know, I care about the effect that policy has on the every man. But the look, we pay Pelosi's gas bill and Gavin Newsom's gas bill. Do you think they care? And Biden's, that gas went to Kamala Harris, $4 and $5 a gallon. Do you think they care what that does to the poor worker that has kids he wants to send to school? The Mexican national from here now, the immigrants that have become citizens here, that are working hard, did everything the right way. But they sell it to the kids in such a way that Trump was putting kids in cages when it happened under the Obama year, and it sticks. And you can't dig yourselves out of this because you don't know how to capture the imagination of these, and it's almost impossible because they pick you up on media.
All right. So Eric, now we're getting to that legacy question. And he really is living a legacy, Robert, by being a patriot, by truly speaking out against what's wrong and telling us what's going on, even though he knows what he's going to face in Hollywood all the time by saying these things, which that truly shows a legacy.
Well, and it does, because the person who's willing to stand up for what's right, regardless of the consequences, is who can change the future, right? It's a paid army is going to give up when they're under attack, but someone who's got a cause and a mission, who's not just doing it for a paycheck, but they're doing it because that's what they're called to do, is almost impossible to stop, right? Because you got a mission. I'm not doing it for a paycheck. I'm doing it because that's what I'm called to do. Right. And you've got the passion to, this is what you're doing, and you're getting to do movies that reflect your passion, which is exciting. So one of the questions, Robert, that we love to ask people is, our show Living a Legacy is about celebrities and amazing people that use their influence to impact the world around them. And you're speaking up daily to use your influence with that. So one of the questions we like to ask is, how do you want to be remembered? And that could be family, friends, as far as career, any direction you want to take it. But, how would you answer that question?
It has multiple aspects to it, because you have the family aspect that comes, the legacy you leave your children with.
Yeah.
Hopefully a way of them being able to look back on a father and how he presented himself to society with his shortcomings and his good parts. I would hope that I lived a life that's honest and truthful, and a life of faith, and a legacy of also your work that you're doing. I recently saw a video by Sarah Silverman, the comedian, and she mocked the idea of America first. She mocked the idea of America first.
Yeah.
And she was mocking that. Now, I've met her. I haven't had a conversation. But I would like to be able to, the left and the right of Hollywood, to have a symposium, an honest dialogue with each other in terms of what it is they see with America, and why, like, even with Columbus. I did the movie Christopher Columbus with Marlon Brando. I played Martin.
Really?
I was in Spain with the experts of all the voyages. Now, Columbus isn't who they said he was. He doesn't deserve the statues to be torn down.
Right.
So the exposing the hypocrisy, and even probably my own in some instances, but it is how do we set this ship straight? How do we bring the world and the country together? That's a legacy I would like to find. I try to do it through the music, and you try to find a way to be able to affect minds, to say, okay, like, I'm an environmentalist. I did a film in the Amazon rainforest in 1990, one of the first art films, big films, dealing with the
Yeah.
Rainforest. And I've always been with the environment. I did a concert for Prince Albert in Monaco. And
Right.
one
Really?
Hollywood for Science, yes, for his oceans organization, and one in Hollywood for Science. So I want to be able to hopefully bridge the gap between big issues and to find the truth in some way. And I'll give you this example. My son came home from school one day. He was 8 years old at the time. And I could tell on his face something happened. And I said, "What's wrong,
Yeah.
Nick?" He goes, "What's wrong? We're best friends. Tell me everything." And he says, "Well, you know, Mikey called me a name." "Oh, what name did he call you?" He said, "No, Dad." I said, "What name? Come on, we're best friends. Tell me what he called you." He called me a name, and he told me the name. I says, "Do you know what that means?" "Yeah, Dad." "Do you feel like that?" He goes, "No, Dad, I like this girl, Christy." I says, "But it doesn't matter, Nick. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?" If he goes,
Right.
"I understand that." I said, "But let me tell you something. If anybody calls anybody that name or a name like that or anything like whatever it might be, you defend that person. You protect that kid that's being bullied. This is when
Right.
he's 8 years old. You protect that, because I know that I'm big influence and a lot of masculinity. So I know that who knows where my son at 16, if he goes in the closet and hangs himself because he can't or couldn't come out and say, 'Dad, I'm gay.'"
Right.
You understand? So I tell that to the conservative movement. I spoke about that at the Family Values Conference one time.
Yeah.
And I tell the LGBTQ community at the same time. I was discussing faith with my mother when I was 16. I was trained by Jesuits, went to Catholic school, and she was the head of confraternity for Long Island. And I'm explaining to her the idea of Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit that wrote these books called The Divine Milieu, The Heart of the Matter, The Phenomenology of Man. That was really, he coined the term the cosmic Christ.
Yeah.
The consciousness of the cosmic, where we're all connected through Christ. And that Christ is the Alpha and Omega. And as the pendulum of man swings from the left to the right, it slows until finally Christ consciousness hits all of us. So I'm describing this kind of Zen thing to her, and she panicked for a second. And I saw it in her eyes. It was like I pushed her off a building.
Yeah.
And I said, she goes, "Well, what do I believe in then?" And I go, no, Mom. I'm just talking. So I tell to the LGBT community, you can't push people off a building.
Right.
You have to respect what they feel and think. And perhaps sometime they'll get around to a different way of thinking. But it's a dishonest thing to push it off a building, to push an agenda down the throat. It's what they're doing now in terms of, until a baby is born with just an anus, he's either male or female. We have the same thing in nature. A cow is born. It's a bull or a cow. A horse so you mean to tell me, as human beings, and we're animals, we can't have a gender at birth? This is a crazy kind of mixed up thinking that's causing, look, could it be because we're waiting for aliens to come and their nuded sexuality? Maybe is it something bigger than all of that? I don't know. But it's society, and we have to have, and I don't care if anybody has any relationship at all amongst each other, individuals. I don't judge anyone. That's not for me. My religion, Christ died for our sins. Christ, no man judges.
Right.
No man judges. So let anybody live how they want. It's not for me to judge, but at the same time, have respect for people of difference of opinion. And they don't today.
Yeah.
It's that the smaller minority, it's like, is it right for women, transgendered, male born, become female, to participate in female sports? I think that doesn't make logic to me.
Right.
It doesn't seem logical to me. Let's have a transgendered sport.
Right.
Yeah.
Have that league and division. That would make sense.
Let's do that. It's like all of a sudden Hasbro said, no more Mr. Potato Head.
Oh yeah.
No more Mrs. Potato Head. So now we're going to have Potato Head. Well, what the hell is wrong? I mean, it's crazy. And there's some other force global, some other force pushing this. And it's so strange.
Well, it's like, who's coming up with it? And what are you trying to distract me from? Because this is just, telling me that orange is yellow and yellow is green, when my whole life yellow's been yellow and orange is, and it's like, what are the truths, right? It's like,
right.
Somewhat society doesn't want us to believe that there's any, truth. Everything is as you define it, and everything's fluid. And it's like, no, there are some constant things, gravity, whether you agree with it or not, you jump off a cliff, gravity's going to grab you, whether you believe in gravity or not.
Exactly.
But
it's like there are certain inalienable truths that just are.
And it only seems to be issues that the left propagates. It's like Nancy Pelosi when the statues came down. Right. So it's only a statue. Well, that's the wrong thing. That's the wrong thing to say, Miss Pelosi. And I met her, and she was very cordial and very nice. But I just don't understand how we have homeless in Los Angeles, guys. You can drive around and you can see these poor people in their tents suffering, 60,000.
Right.
They're all over the place. And then in San Francisco and other places in the country.
Right.
You mean to tell me we're letting immigrants in and not worrying about encampments for these people? We have enough land in America and money. The money that they're giving to these migrants that are coming into the nation, that are adding more homelessness. And we're all for that. But when my grandparents came, there were quotas. They had to have also a work and a place to stay, and they had accountability. Now they're just saying bing and into the system. No, it's wrong. It's evil. What they're doing is evil. Nobody calls them out on it. You don't have these guys. I blame the GOP. They're just as guilty as anyone else because they don't call them out on this stuff. You got one or two guys that do, but the rest of them are just worried about getting reelected.
So Robert's looking to run, right? That's the next thing, right? No. They'd have to draft me big time. I ain't gonna put my hat in the ring. They gotta do like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Like it. So, Robert, the film is available. It comes out in April, right? Is that correct? What date in April?
Streaming all over the place.
April 10th. And everybody needs to see it, because if it doesn't matter what side you're on, you'll get to see the true story of this. And that's
and you'll learn. Roe versus Wade. It's impacted our nation more than any court case in the history of our country.
Right. How the Supreme Court justices, it's always interesting. We have a lot of talk about the Supreme Court justices, and now you get a peek under their robes.
Right. If it really happens or not. If that would, and could you imagine that craziness? They would go the direction, but it's all about propaganda and what happens for sure.
Well, Eric, we didn't have science back then, don't forget. So they came up with another thing because we didn't have the science we have today. Right. If they had the science, I think it would have been a little different of an issue.
It makes it a lot harder case to go the direction it did with the science that we have today.
Yeah. It's also confusing because it's being used as birth control. So when you say 60 million unborns being aborted, staggering figure, that's like communist Chinese figures.
Yeah.
Stalinist figures in terms of death camps and stuff like that. But not all of them had to be medical, I'm sure.
Exactly. All right. So Eric, wow, what a great guest. You really enjoyed this, didn't you?
Man, I've always been a fan, and I love, Robert. Our views are wildly similar on a lot of things. Just standing up and being who you are. I like me, love me, hate me, whatever. I am who I am, right? And that's how you just present yourself as you've got to be true to yourself. And I love the fact that you're just.
Listen to
it's not one side versus the other. We're looking for truth, and we want both sides. We want anybody to have freedom of speech. We want people to be empowered, and I love that you're doing that, man.
Well, we've got to discuss. In other words, the other day, everyone saw the clip. He was talking to Nance, and you want to ask me a question if that's what you want, or whatever you guys want. I'll answer questions, and it went no questions asked, went blank. And the other day too, when he was leaving a thing. Now, God bless the man if he's ill. I don't know if he's not. I'm not a doctor. I hear rumors, I hear things. I'm not going to judge on that. He does seem frail to me. He does seem kindly. He does seem kind of, when you see him, you want to go, the poor guy. You know what I mean? But that's the leader of the free world. Now, when he was leaving that other thing, and I asked him about the border, he says, we had a discussion. And what about you? And he goes, all of it. And he leaves. Now, if that Trump pulled a trick like that, it would have been crazy news. Don Lemon would have had a fit. Chris Cuomo would have had a fit. Joe Scarborough would have had a fit. And yet
24/7.
the hypocrisy of the media has to be accountable. All right? They are connivers of Caesar's Senate.
All right. All right.
And it's all editorial.
All right. So thanks again, Robert. Thanks again, Eric. And this was Geff. Living a Legacy. Guys, take care. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Eric. And we look forward to talking off air again with Robert. So take care. All right. That was Living a Legacy.
Thanks for joining the show, Robert. Appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. That was Living a Legacy.